You look at your skin in the mirror every single morning, brushing your teeth or picking out your clothes without giving it a second thought. You check your face for blemishes, look at your arms, and simply accept this shade as your permanent identity. But for 99% of human history, the skin tones we see in our modern cities did not even exist. Imagine a completely different world, a raw and burning landscape where our ancestors ran naked across the open African savanna with no clothes, no sunscreen, and absolutely no shelter from a brutal sun. The sky was an active weapon, and every single day was a battle against the open elements. So how did we actually survive that blinding light to become the colorful species we are today? The answer will completely change how you look at your own body evolution and what it truly means to be human. To find the truth, we have to look closely at what happened to our ancient family tree. Long ago, our ancestors looked more like chimpanzees than modern humans, and their entire bodies were covered in thick, dark fur. That fur was a perfect gift from nature because it acted like a heavy jacket, blocking the dangerous rays of the sun before they could ever touch the skin underneath. But around 2 million years ago, our early ancestors faced a massive crisis as the great forests began to dry up and shrink. The trees disappeared, leaving behind vast, flat, hot grasslands under a sky that had absolutely no mercy. To stay alive, our ancestors had to change their entire lifestyle, stepping out of the shade and becoming long-distance runners to find food and escape dangerous predators. This is where our bodies made a massive trade. A fur-covered animal can run very fast for a few minutes, but heat gets trapped inside its body like an oven, forcing it to stop and pant to cool down. If we kept our thick fur, our brains would have literally melted under the heat of the African savanna. So our ancestors dropped their hair and developed millions of tiny sweat glands all over their bare skin. This was a brilliant survival trick because we could run for hours in the middle of the day sweating to cool our brains while every other animal had to hide in the shade. But this great trade left us completely naked, raw, and exposed to a brutal enemy from above. Without fur, the tropical sun began to burn our bare skin with intense ultraviolet radiation, throwing humanity into a new battle for survival. For decades, scientists thought we changed color simply to avoid getting skin cancer. But that theory turned out to be completely wrong. Skin cancer usually hurts people later in life, long after they have already had children and passed on their genes, meaning evolution would not care enough to change our entire species because of it. The real mystery was finally solved in the year 2000, when a brilliant anthropologist named Nina Jablonski and her team looked at global satellite data from NASA. They mapped the exact levels of ultraviolet light across the Earth and compared it to the skin tones of native populations. What they discovered changed everything we knew about ourselves. The brutal sun was not just burning our skin, it was actively destroying a fragile vital molecule flowing through our blood vessels called folate. Folate is a basic B vitamin that your body uses to build new cells, repair damaged DNA, and keep your immune system strong. More importantly, if a pregnant woman loses her folate to sunlight, her baby can be born with terrible birth defects. And if a man loses his folate, his body stops producing healthy sperm. Under the rules of natural selection, if you cannot protect your folate, you cannot leave healthy descendants, and your branch of the family tree stops growing. To save our future, nature turned on a biological defense mechanism inside our cells, a dark pigment called melanin. Melanin acts like a million tiny umbrellas inside your skin, absorbing the dangerous rays and scattering them before they can damage your blood vessels and folate. In the intense heat of Africa, the humans who survived were the ones whose bodies turned up the dial on melanin, making their skin very dark, rich, and heavily protected. Dark skin was never a badge of a different race. It was a life-saving shield designed to keep our collective family tree alive. But our story took a dramatic turn around 60,000 years ago, when small bands of Homo sapiens began to pack up and walk away from their homeland. We slowly moved across vast deserts, followed long-winding coastlines, and drifted into the northern parts of Europe and Asia. As we walked farther away from the equator, the problem of survival completely flipped upside down. The danger was no longer too much sunlight, but a terrifying lack of it. In these new cloudy lands, the sun hung low in the winter sky, and its rays were far too weak to pierce through heavy layers of dark melanin. This created a fresh biological crisis, because our bodies need a specific type of light, called UVB, to trigger the production of vitamin D. Vitamin D is not a luxury. It is an absolute necessity for your survival. Your body uses it to absorb calcium, build solid bones, and keep your heart and immune system working properly. Without it, children develop a devastating disease called rickets, which makes their legs bend and twist under their own weight. For an ancient woman living in a dark, cold climate, a lack of vitamin D meant her pelvic bones would become deformed, making it nearly impossible to survive childbirth. The heavy melanin shield that saved our lives in Africa was now blocking out the tiny bit of sunlight we needed to stay alive in the north. To fix this, natural selection had to work fast, dialing down the melanin production over hundreds of generations. The humans who survived in these dark environments were the ones born with genetic mutations that made their skin lighter, clearer, and more transparent. Lighter skin allowed the weak northern light to penetrate deep into the flesh, generating enough vitamin D to keep bones strong and families healthy through freezing, sunless winters. This proves that cold weather never bleached our skin, and the snow never changed our color. It was always about the light. The most fascinating piece of this puzzle comes from the frozen lands of the Arctic, where groups like the Inuit have lived for thousands of years. According to the old geographic rules, these northern people should have developed paper white skin, but they actually have beautiful, rich copper-brown skin. For a long time, this baffled researchers, but the answer lay in what they ate every single day. The traditional diet of these Arctic communities was packed with whale-fat seals and oily marine fish foods that are naturally overflowing with vitamin D. Because their food gave them all the vitamin D their bodies required, nature never had to strip away their melanin to let the weak northern sun in. This beautiful exception shows us that our bodies are not rigid machines, but fluid journals written by our surroundings, our choices, and our food. We are a messy, wandering species, and our appearance is the direct result of a complex equation that kept our ancestors alive through every climate on Earth. So, what does all of this actually mean for the way we live and look at each other today? The deep truth is that evolution never cared about social status, beauty standards, or the artificial boundaries we love to draw around ourselves. Nature was simply trying to solve a delicate chemistry problem under an open sky. It was balancing a biological scale, asking how to block enough sun to protect your blood while letting enough sun in to build your bones. That is the entire puzzle. There is no original color, no special version, and no final draft. Yet our modern societies took this purely functional, beautiful compromise and twisted it into something unrecognizable. We gave it arbitrary labels, turned it into a cruel weapon, and built massive systems of violence and division based on nothing more than a chemical reaction in our cells. We forgot that our skin is just an old journal of where our ancestors stood in relation to the sun. To make this even more mind-bending, genetic science has recently revealed that lighter skin actually evolved more than once in human history. The specific genetic mutations that caused people to lose melanin in Western Europe are completely different from the genetic changes that happened to populations in East Asia. Evolution arrived at the exact same functional answer twice, using entirely different biological paths. This completely shatters the illusion that humanity ever split into neat, separate, or pure racial groups. There was never a single historical moment when a white race or a black race suddenly came into existence. Those are cheap modern social concepts used to categorize what was actually a beautiful, continuous, and incredibly slow journey across a changing planet. The first Homo sapiens were dark because they all walked under a fierce African sky, but they belonged to nobody but each other. They were just human beings sharing the same blood trying to stay alive. Today, we live in a world that has completely broken these ancient rules. We board airplanes and cross the entire globe in a matter of hours, moving faster than our biology can ever catch up. You might carry skin designed for weak northern skies, yet you spend your life working under a harsh equator sun. Or maybe your ancestors spent thousands of years building a rich melanin shield, but you find yourself sitting inside a gray, cloudy office in a cold northern city. This modern mismatch can make you feel tired, out of place, and deeply disconnected from your surroundings. But remember, your body is not broken. You are simply carrying a slow, beautiful story of old sunlight written directly onto your skin. Your appearance is not a wall that divides you from others, and it is certainly not a scorecard for society to judge. It is a living map of human resilience, a visible trace of cold winters survived, long deserts crossed, and struggles overcome by people whose names are long gone. They did not care about social labels. They just wanted to protect their children and make it to tomorrow. If you want to keep exploring these deep truths and find peace in who you are, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Let us walk this meaningful path together, and I will see you in the next video.